What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 124 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I want to talk to you about another Solomon Kane book. This is Solomon Kane and the Castle of the Devil by Scott Alley, Mario Guevara, and Dave Stewart. Now, I want to go ahead and say the cover here is by Mike Mignola of Hellboy fame. If you see this cover and you're thinking, cool, a Mike Mignola Solomon Kane story. No, he just did the cover. It's a very good cover, but this book is not by Mike Mignola. The interior artwork is very different than Mignola's artwork. I will show you a glimpse of what you can expect whenever you read this book. The artwork is not bad, it's just not my cup of tea. If you told me that I could have a Mike Mignola Solomon Kane story, or a Solomon Kane story that looks a little bit like this, I would prefer the Mike Mignola one. In fact, I think what I did when I bought this, I bought it because I saw the Mike Mignola cover, and I wasn't really paying any attention to the credits on the book, and then when I opened it, I was a little bit disappointed. Me personally, I prefer artwork in comic books to be a little bit more clean than what this is right here. This has got a whole lot of cross-hatching in it. It's overly rendered. It feels very rough and sketchy, if that makes any sense. Here's another look at kind of what you can expect. Again, some people really like that style, so I'm not saying that this is a bad style. It's just not what I like in comic books. So that was something that disappointed me a little bit, but I'm not going to say that that is necessarily a con when you're reading this book, or a downside for it, because some people probably prefer that style over to Mike Mignola style. So getting into the story itself, like I said, I don't want to talk too much about this story, because if I talk much about it, I'm going to be spoiling stuff that's different about this than the Robert E. Howard excerpt, or the adaptation from that big essential size collection that I talked about yesterday. So I don't want to talk too much about this particular adaptation of the story, although I will say my one complaint is something that I've been complaining about a lot with some of these Conan stories that I've been talking about. This adaptation is way too long. The excerpt that Robert E. Howard wrote, from what I understand, he only got roughly 1/3 of the way through the story before he stopped writing it. This is 5 issues long. This does not need to be 5 issues long. This could have been 4 issues, maybe even 3. Basically, they cover the ground that Robert E. Howard covered in the excerpt in the first issue of this miniseries. And I feel like they were saying, okay, this needs to be 5 issues long so that it can be a nice, good, trade paperback-sized story, and I just don't think that it needed to be that long. I think if they really wanted this to be big enough to fit into a trade paperback, they could have adapted 2 Robert E. Howard stories, maybe do 2 3-issue stories, and it would have been just a little bit bigger than this one. I don't think that taking an unfinished excerpt that Robert E. Howard wrote and then trying to stretch it out to be 5 issues long, I don't think that that's the way to go. That's really my only complaint about this. If you like the artwork that I showed you, if you like the character of Solomon Kane that I've talked about today and yesterday, I would definitely recommend that you check this out. It's a very different character than what Robert E. Howard was used to writing, and I talked about that a little bit yesterday also. So it's very interesting to see this kind of character in these kinds of stories. I really enjoyed this story. My only real complaint is that it is a little bit long, but that's not a big complaint. It's not a deal breaker or anything like that. I still enjoyed the story quite a bit. So if you think you guys would enjoy this story, if you have enjoyed other Solomon Kane stories and you haven't heard of this one, or you haven't seen this one before, I would recommend that you check this out. I think that you guys would probably like it if you are a fan of Robert E. Howard's other characters and other Solomon Kane stories. So those are my thoughts on this book. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.